to open the continued public hearing on the MBTA Communities Zoning Overlay. Do we have a second?
Whether he knows it or not.
Second.
Hey, we have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion? Mr. Guasi,
Aye.
Mr. English,
Aye.
Mr. Lawrence,
Aye.
Mr. Maloney,
Aye.
Mr. Orban.
Aye.
Charles Woodham's aye, 6 in favor, none opposed, 1 absent. Well, here we are again. I was chatting with Rachel the other day about where we stand on this. And she had mentioned that Mr. English had an idea of possible other location that we could consider as part of the total overlays. It wouldn't encompass the entire 50 acres that are necessary, but it would be part of it. I don't know if you want to go into that, Rob, what your thoughts were on that.
Well, I'm trying to find the right answer for this, which has been applied to our face with a plunger. So it's difficult. The Abbey has a substantial tract of land on Sheldon Road, and the total land mass up there is 69 acres. It's all, well, except for the candy shop and the area where the farm is. And a lot of that is in Franklin, by the way. It's undeveloped, and I don't know what the future is for the church, for the Abbey, how they are financially, but they have commercially leased 3 fields for solar operations. So I don't think they're necessarily flush. And at some point, it seems to me that's the closest location to the Franklin train station that we have that's eligible. And that's why I presented it. So
Okay.
it's an overlay. So it's an overlay on a piece of property that I think we get 0 tax revenue out of. Rachel can correct me on that, but it's I think it should be considered.
Okay.
That's the entirety of my brain droppings.
Okay. I was approached by a member of the EDC about trying to put together another working group meeting of subcommittees. And what I think we are intending to do, correct me if I'm wrong, Rachel, we're looking to at least, because we've got to get rolling on this. It's we keep kind of kicking the can down the road. But we're going to have a deadline pretty soon. So Rachel and I were discussing possibly having the subcommittee of the planning board meet with the planner and the consultant, at least as an initial point of discussion, and sort of talk about some of the options, and then maybe reach out to the EDC and or select board about trying to do another working group with subcommittees. Just because we've got, if we're going to do anything that has to go to the state for review, they want 90 days before our vote. And if our vote is going to be in the fall, and we're not sure exactly when that would be, let's just say it's going to be fall town meeting, which is what, first Monday of November, or second Monday of November, something like that. That basically puts us at August 1st, August, September, October, well, middle of August, maybe at best, that we would have to have something into the state for them to have 90 days to review. So the clock's ticking, and there doesn't seem to be a lot of activity. So we're trying to get that kick started. Rachel, you've gone on to video. You look like you want to participate and say something. No? Okay.
No, it was just because you mentioned my name. So I was like, oh, I gotta come off
okay.
now. Uh-oh, he called me out.
Yeah, No, Rachel and I had a very nice discussion the other day prior to town meeting. Because I happen to actually have the time this week because I'm on staycation, so I was able to go up and try to prepare for town meeting. But yeah, I think we need to get working on that. So I reached out to Chairman McKnight, who is currently overseas, but he thought it sounded like a good idea to try to at least do a subcommittee meeting with the planning board and Rachel and the consultant and see if we can look at some of these other areas, look at some of the areas that have been suggested by some of the other boards and committees and talk about the real nuts and bolts of whether they make sense or not. I know there are factions who are very keen on making certain areas part of it, and we just need to make sure that that makes sense for the town going forward.
Chuck?
So I was able to approach MAPC because they worked on the downtown zone rezoning back in 2018. And I approached them after the board's last discussion where it seemed like you were narrowing it down to the outlets, the downtown, and then the wampum area.
Right.
So I just want to caution about adding a bunch of other properties on this. That's not, I just want to clarify, they're not going to be going through every site in town. These were kind of the areas that it seemed that the board was heading towards. So they were able to go through that. So
Jim, you have some? Yeah.
Is this Abbey site that Mr. English has been talking about one of the ones? That's the only other one that I've heard of that.
that's brand new. That's not come up in the 8 months that I've been working on it, and until Rob brought it up just, I think, a couple weeks ago, maybe. Yeah.
But if we were having a targeted discussion on just a few sites, is that one we could add in? Or is there a bunch
Sure.
of prep work ahead of time that needs to be done, like reviewing it?
We can do whatever you want. I'm just cautioning about adding too many in when we've got a November timeline is all. I've done what I think. I've done my job. I just want to caution about going through all of the sites. I understand. I'm not trying to say that it doesn't matter. I'm just, yeah, anyway.
What you're saying
I think
is,
you've been clear and correct.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. English.
my fear is paralysis by analysis. We're looking at the clock, and the next hour is the 11th hour. So
Yep.
we definitely need to move forward on this. It was the reason the Abbey property was brought up by me is that I attended the meeting at the library where the consultant presented to us. Chuck, you were there.
Yep.
And in that, he mentioned sites that were not excluded under the MBTA bylaw, and he said churches. That was when my ears perked up to say, "Oh, there's 69 acres on Sheldon Road." So that's how it came up late in the game. But again, I think the worst thing we can do is get paralyzed by analysis. So I'll leave it there.
Yep. No, I agree. And I fully appreciate and agree with what Rachel is saying. The last thing we need is to go saying, well, look, there are 29 other sites that are at least 5 acres that we should, we'll go crazy doing that. We've got three major ones that I think have been the point of most of the discussion all along. I personally am not opposed to at least having a discussion about the Abbey property, but I agree with Rachel. I don't want it to be you know, let's come up with 10 other properties to take a look at, because that's just going to be kicking the can down the road, and yeah, we have a ticking clock, and it's getting closer, so.
That's crazy talk.
So, so I believe at this point, the plan is that Rachel is going to see if we can set up a meeting with the subcommittee. I will do my very best to be available for it. I told her, you know, this week would have been perfect because as I said, I'm home, but unfortunately Mike is away. And we hadn't really had this discussion prior to this. So, but hopefully in the very near future, within the next, what do you think, Rachel? Do you think we could do this in the next week or two? Have that meeting
Yes.
with the consultant? Okay, so we'll have that. Whoever on the subcommittee, if we have 3 people, so Mr. Lawrence.
If I can make it, I'll go. And I think Mr. English was there, and he might have even been an alternate with Mr. McKnight being the other.
Mr. English, yes, right, yes, Mr. English is our bench player. He can
The
come off
third
the bench
alternate
if
once
someone can't.
removed.
Right, there you go. So as long as, you know, and like I said, if it works out better for Jim, Rob, and Mike to be there, I don't, you know, obviously I would like to be part of it, but it's not crucial that I am. I trust, you know, implicitly the judgment of the board members, and would have no problem with you folks discussing it and just telling me about what you said afterwards. I have faith in the team that we would get something done. And I think if we can do that, then we can talk to other boards about trying to do a true working group where we have subcommittees from multiple boards. But I personally do not want to go down the road of having joint public hearing again. We've done it twice, and I didn't find it to be particularly productive. And I think we're better off going with this route where we discuss it in the working group and then come up with a proposal that we present as a board. So,
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Maloney.
I like the way you're thinking of this. Probably it's a good idea. Other towns that have come forward have followed the same pathway. They put together a working group. They work on it for, you know, you're right. We're a little bit up against time on this now, but they followed the same pathway that you've laid out here. So I'd probably I don't know if you think it's a good idea to meet with the consultant separately and then go to the working group, which means 2 meetings, and fine. Otherwise, I would set up a meeting of the working group of the various boards, so that the collective working group, and bring the consultant to that. Maybe it's not a good idea, but it seems to be more efficient than scheduling, you know, a series of meetings. I'd probably get to it as soon as possible. The select board has asked for multiple selections here, sort of an a la carte type of thing, and that's one of the things that has to be resolved in that big working group type of thing. I think.
Right.
I think you and Rachel just explained why, you know, expanding the number of sites at this point probably is impractical and counterproductive. But I think other people need to hear that, people on other boards. So maybe getting sort of the big powwow together as soon as you can might be the way to go.
Okay. No, that's a fair point. It's been it's been difficult. It's been to try to get people all together at the same time. It's a bit like herding cats. I think that was why we were thinking that at least an initial meeting with just the planning board subcommittee and the consultant, and don't do that soon, and certainly sort of hash out a couple of issues that may still be outstanding, and then try to bring in select board and EDC so that we can come up with something. Go ahead,
And
Rachel.
the planning board has included the site that was most desired by the select board, which is the outlets.
Right. I mean, isn't that larger working group what we asked for in the first place? And they kind of said, come to our joint meeting instead.
Right, we've done that twice.
And then we asked again, and they again did it, and you encapsulated perfectly my feeling about how productive those meetings were. They were informative, but they weren't productive. And if we need to start producing a finished decision, I don't think more, and I think we've got the information we need. You know, the further information we're gonna get is gonna be the outcomes of either legal action or decisions from other towns.
Right.
You know, and I think at some point we need to decide what our town is gonna do and then work off of that decision if it needs to be altered. You know, we don't need to make a final decision, but we need to, you know, progress to the point where we're headed in a particular direction that we know we can complete with enough time to have it reviewed, so that if we need to pivot or, you know, make a different decision because we're being shut down, we still have the time to do it. That's how I kind of feel about it.
Right. Yeah, and certainly I want to be very cognizant of what's going on with the other towns, and some of them that are quote fighting this. There are a number of towns that have suits against the state that have voted against it. And all of that is certainly something that we should pay attention to, but I am very, I don't want to sit back and say, well, let's see if somebody can, you know, get this law overturned. I think that's not a productive way to do it. I think we need as a town to come up with, you know, some kind of a plan, some decision as to where these overlay districts would be located. And then if it gets overturned, we have the option to go back. You know, if we make a decision at town meeting, we change our zoning, we allow these overlay districts to go in, and then the state Supreme Court says, no, this law is unconstitutional, and they throw it out. We as a town have the option to call a special town meeting, go back and rescind that vote. It would require a 2/3 majority, whereas approving it only requires a simple majority, because that's one of the things that the state did to make it easier to get this to pass. To rescind it would require 2/3, but I'm not worried that we'd be able to get the 2/3. There would be a slight chance that someone could file an application in the meantime, and then they would kind of be grandfathered in, not the right term, but the chances, I think the chances of that are pretty slim. But I'm not real confident that this is going to get thrown out in court either. And I think we need to be prepared as a town to move forward with a plan that we can somehow learn to live with, or, you know, but we need to take action on it. So I'm fine with if it's sort of the feeling of the board, if we want to try to do a full working group with the other boards, or if we should do the meeting with just the planning board subcommittee and the consultant and Rachel first.
That's where I'm at.
Yeah,
I think if we did that work and then we had a subcommittee meeting with the other boards, we'd be bringing them something that is like, okay, comment on this. Let's
right.
not just talk about
right.
a bunch of hypothetical stuff.
Right.
This is the work we've done. Let's comment on this. Is this going to work or not? If not, why not? What needs to be changed? You know what I mean?
Yep.
I'd rather have something in hand going into that meeting than just having a general free-for-all meeting with them. Does that make sense to you, Tom? You were the one who was mentioning that.
It's fine, Jim. I mean, if you think that's more practical, it's okay. It's another step in the process. What is it we're looking to get from the consultant at this point? The consultant has done its job. You know, we're thinking of adding one or two sites. But what would you hope to get out of that meeting with the consultant before going into the larger meeting?
Well, I wasn't the one, oh, may I?
Yo, please do, please.
I wasn't the one who suggested it, but if it's going to happen and I'm there, what I want was, you know, again, this idea I've had is take one filter off and see which ones pop back onto the screen. And I think some of the questions I asked and the responses that I got seemed somewhat favorable. I did watch the video of that meeting that you're all discussing that you were at, the ones of you who were at it. And it's the idea of like doing the outlet and then putting conditions on where in order to do the development, they would have to turn it into a town center. They would have to add development pieces that would make it conform to a town center. Of everything I've heard, aside from the already, you know, I think partially realized plans that we have for our town center, I think that's the most promising way to go about this. And since the consultant's conclusion was that wampum area was the better one, I would want to compare and contrast those two ideas with her. That's what I would hope to gain personally, me. I don't know what other people think. And I do agree that the select board does like that, does seem to like the idea of that. It's one of their favorites. Okay, I'm sorry. I interrupted.
Yeah, no, I mean, to me, the downside, if you will, I mean, if the reality is, if it goes in at the outlets, it's probably going to be the maximum number of units because they've got the infrastructure there already. You know, one of the considerations when somebody wants to develop in Wrentham is that there's no sewer, and they would have to develop wastewater facility if they built one of these developments, and the outlets already have that, and they have you know, sufficient water and all of that stuff. So it would make it a more inviting place to put the development if someone were going to come in and build. But you know, I guess it depends on whether we're looking to come up with areas that are more conducive to build or less, but at least meet the letter of the law. So, and that's a philosophical thing that we have differing opinions on within the town, I think.
Yeah. You know, you have a hand raised.
Yes, I do.
I
And
don't know if
it's
it's done
before
with our
yep.
discussion.
Yep. Nope. I just wanted to see if there was anybody else from the board that had anything that they wanted to add right now before I went to public input.
You know, the only thing I wanted to maybe ask you guys, because you guys are all, I watched the YouTube of the when you guys met with the attorney, and maybe I heard him wrong, but I thought what I heard him say is he thought the most likely outcome was maybe that the Commonwealth would win, but it would be limited to those 4 or so, the specifically named bonds that they reference in the act. Was that did I take that away correctly, or did I hear it? Because I have some thoughts on that if that was what I heard correctly, and I'm just curious if everybody else interpreted him that way as well.
My take on the you're talking about the possible ramifications of the town if we don't. The original legislation, the original law that was passed by the state legislature only mentioned 4 specific funding mechanisms that the towns would be ineligible for. That was part of the initial legislation, but as as the EOHLC, I think I got it, have developed the guidelines. They've expanded that. They've added something in the neighborhood of, I believe, 13 other areas of funding that could be possibly at risk for the town if we are not compliant. Now, those were not part of the original legislation, but the original legislation also left the door open to, you know, an office like the EOHLC to come up with the guidelines, so that it's, while it's not specifically spelled out in the legislation, it sort of has the approval of the legislature, because the legislature said, okay, this is the law, and these people are going to tell you how you're going to have to enact it. And so they've expanded the stick. We haven't got any more carrots, but we've got more sticks.
Yeah, and I guess my the way I interpret it, what kind of concerned me was is I think what the lawyer was trying to say is he thought it maybe the SJC would limit it to just the 4 specifically named. But what jumped out at me with that is, well, if they do that, from my perspective is what they're saying is the act that the Commonwealth is doing is constitutional, so that the Commonwealth
Right.
could just change the act and expand on it. So
Right.
I mean that's what really I found troublesome, and you know, and from my perspective and what we have is in terms of the timeline, whatever happens, constitutional, unconstitutional, it's happening in 25 or beyond. So
Right. It's not
we
gonna
have to make
happen
we
before
can't
the
really
end of this
rely on
year.
that, yeah.
Right. If we sit back and wait to see how the court cases come out, we're gonna be in non-compliance because we won't have taken any action.
We'll be part of one of them.
Right, exactly. And they've made it pretty clear, I think, that they're, you know, the state is not messing around with it, so. Anybody else from the board before I open up to public comment?
Yeah, I like the direction you guys are talking about, meeting with the consultant and then a subcommittee to try to make more progress on this quickly, because we are hitting timeline issues with this project, so I like it.
Thank you, Mr. Wassi. Okay, we're gonna open up to public comment. I see Mr. Immonen has his hand raised. Anybody else after Mr. Immonen? If you want to speak, please just raise your hand and wait to be recognized. Mr. Immonen, you have the floor.
I'd like to thank each of you for going through this process.
Sorry, Leo, you could get your name and address, please.
Leo Immonen, 650 East Street.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Again, I thank each of you for the position that you're in right now. I think you've been very courteous and open to other people's comments. You've met twice with the select board and the EDC. Clearly, they have indicated many objections to this process. And I feel for you, particularly the 3 new members to be elected and suddenly be put into the fire right away. To me, it'd be a terribly challenging job, particularly when you're not sure where you should be. However, what I'd also like to say, in my opinion, you, as members of our town's planning board, have the responsibility to pick a site for this project. And no matter what you pick, there are going to be people who say it's wrong, it's not possible. And the other thing that concerns me is you have one more meeting before August 1st. As your chair has indicated, you need to present something to the state if we're going to allow them to go ahead and give us some feedback. So to me, it doesn't make sense for you to go ahead and make further meetings with other boards. I think it's time to accept the fact that whatever you choose is not going to be liked by everybody. I've had that experience as a zoning board. Whatever you do, somebody's going to say no. What I feel you should do with the current subcommittee of the members of the planning board is give them a charge. Come back at your July 17th meeting with a recommended site or sites. And at that point, have the planning board discuss it and hopefully say, yes, that's the one we want to go with, and then you can move forward. I agree with the concern. You cannot analyze this forever. I mean, your job to me is pick the site. There are many other things people talk about, but to me, it's relatively simple. Pick the site. Simple to pick, hard to go ahead and take the flack that's going to come up out because of it. So I encourage you to move forward as a group and pick a site and be ready to vote on July 17th. I wish you the very best. Thank you for your efforts.
Thank you, Mr. Inman, and I appreciate that. And I hear what you're saying about the responsibility of this board, and I agree with you on that. So, Joanna McFarland.
Thank you, Mr. Woodhams. This is Joanna McFarland, 135 Bennett Street. I am a member of the EDC, but as you all know, unfortunately, the EDC has not been able to get a quorum to be able to come to any of the planning board meetings. So we haven't been able to speak as a commission. However, I directly disagree with Mr. Inman, and unfortunately, the planning board has not had a meeting with the Economic Development Commission. The Economic Development Commission has a working group. We've met a couple of times. We have some great ideas, and we'd love to be able to discuss them with the planning board. My preference would be that the planning board working group would meet with the Economic Development Commission working group, and maybe just 4, 5, 6 of us hash out some ideas before we engage the consultant. If that is not the route that you're planning to go, it's totally fine, but I already asked Rachel, and I hope that members of the public can attend that working group, the planning board working group with the consultant, so that we can quietly listen and understand where you're going. Because I think if the planning board has the meeting first with the consultant and then meets with, let's say, the EDC, we're going to have to rediscuss everything that was discussed with the consultant, and we're just going to be wasting time. And I do agree we're on a time crunch. I'd love for us to meet together as soon as possible. And again, I appreciate everything the boards are doing, but it's been a hard. That's all I'm going to say. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Joanna. Yeah, I mean, it's not from lack of trying as far as getting the working groups together. The first meeting with that involved the select board that we were under the impression was going to be just a working group of the subcommittees ended up being a full public hearing from the select board, and that was February, or if it wasn't February, it was early March. It was several months ago. That was supposed to have been a meeting of subcommittees of the planning board, EDC, and select board, and it didn't turn out that way. So then when we tried it again, for whatever reason, it ended up being the select board coming here and making this a joint meeting of the two boards. And I think there's too many voices all at once. And whatever order we do it in, whether we meet with the EDC or try to get the select board in with it or not, before the consultant or after the consultant, I guess I don't have a preference. Maybe Rachel and I can talk about that a little more. Unless, Rachel, do you have a thought that you'd like to share now as far as whether you think it would be more beneficial to do it in one order or the other? I just want to move. I don't care whether it's planning board and consultant and then bring in the other groups, or it's the other way around. We need to move, and I don't have a preference in which order we do it. It just whatever we think will be the most efficient, so that we can get to a point where we can make a recommendation, because that is the planning board's piece of this. Is we can take suggestions from the other boards, but all at the end of the day, it's the planning board's job to come up with the final area and make that recommendation to the town. So,
I serve at the, the will of the board. I would only just ask that if the EDC has additional sites, that they should be sending those in to the board for review, in a letter format as well.
fair enough. Joanna, would you be able to sort of run with that and talk to the other people, and if you have other sites, maybe send those in, and we as the planning board subcommittee, if we go through the route of meeting with the consultant first, then at least we have your ideas to consider.
Mr. Woodhams, I completely understand what you're saying, and I completely agree with you. I think that where our EDC chair is headed is until she receives a formal request from other boards, she's unwilling to put anything in writing, which has been rather difficult at our meetings. And it's been hard. That's all I'm gonna say. We've had some contentious meetings. There are those of us on the EDC who really want to work on this and really want to help. And there are those of us who feel that the EDC's stance should just be wait and see. I'm one of those who really wants to help, and I would love to be there in any way I can. I can write a letter as a member of the public to the planning board if that would be welcome. But I'm not certain that the EDC would be willing to write a letter.
Okay, so let's, going back to what you were saying about a form, so just want to make sure I'm understanding you. The stance of the chair of the EDC is that she wants us to invite her to offer her opinion,
Yes,
or
yes.
the opinion of the EDC.
Yes, that is exactly right. I have been told that unless she has received written communication that the EDC has been requested to opine on an issue, she doesn't feel that she needs to do so.
You have a subcommittee chosen among the EDC members? Do you have people who are delegates to a subcommittee?
When the EDC meets, we're a 7-member commission, and we're a non-voting commission.
Right.
During our meetings, we'll be lucky if we can get a quorum.
Okay.
Therefore, the 3 of us who regularly attend have dubbed ourselves a subcommittee per se. It
Okay.
has not been voted on, but again, we're not a voting commission, so it really doesn't matter.
But you have members who are willing to operate as a subcommittee of the EDC.
Yes, I can say that we do.
Okay. And I just for the planning board, and it may be different for us because we are a voting board, that we designated, specific members and took a vote on it as a board.
Correct.
So
The
if you have
EDC
a subcommittee and we meet with your subcommittee, do we still have to submit a letter of invitation for an opinion from the EDC? Is that your understanding?
I don't know anything about that. I would defer to Rachel or, the
No,
town
well-
manager on that.
Well, no, you had said that the chair of the EDC won't state anything publicly unless she gets a formal letter of invitation, but you have a subcommittee who's willing to meet with us, I'm just wondering if you have people who are willing to meet, why there's this formality of requiring an invitation.
I'm wondering the same thing too.
Okay, all right. Okay. All right. So, I mean, my only concern is dragging things out more. As we've said, and Mr. Immonen made a good point of it, you know, we are the window is quickly closing in time. And I don't want to run into an issue where it's difficult for us, our subcommittee, to meet, whether with other subcommittees or just with the consultant. So I guess I'm gonna, I think for now, my feeling is that we should go ahead with the planning board meeting, subcommittee meeting with the planner and the consultant. Try to set that up for now, but I'm going to also reach out to the chairman and let him know of this discussion tonight and just verify whether he agrees with that or if he thinks we should try to bring at least the EDC in. I don't want anybody to feel like they're shut out of the discussion, but I'm just afraid that if we keep trying to include people in the discussion, that we're going to run out of time because we're, you know, these people can't meet here, these people can't meet there. And I'm just trying to get things moving, I think, as are you, Joanna. So I don't know what the board feels, how the board feels about that.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Maloney.
thank you. If that's how you feel we should do it, then let's do it. Set up the meeting, bring the consultant back in. If that gives you a comfort level, that's fine. Make sure that the consultant knows that the town has been having numerous conversations and forums and so forth, and that there is a significant parcel that many people would like to include in the conversation, that being the outlets, and restart it, and then take the conversation from there and reach whatever conclusions you think you should, and then move on. And bring other people in. If that's comfortable for you, then let's do it. Is that a good idea?
I'm all for that.
Okay. All right. So I think at least for now, Rachel, if you would reach out to the consultant, see if we can set something up. I don't know what everybody's availability is, so you know, obviously the sooner the better if we could get something rolling. And in the meantime, yeah, I'm gonna discuss this with Mike as well and just get his take on it and see what he thinks on it. Because I think it was his suggestion initially that the subcommittee of the planning board just meet with Rachel and the consultant. But I will speak to him and we'll see if we can. I just want to make sure that he's still comfortable going that route. I'm more than happy to do whatever I can to facilitate it. But ultimately he's the chair and I want to make sure that he's comfortable with whatever route we choose to go. I'm only the chair tonight.
It's been 2
Um,
nights. There's a
Keep
trend.
telling
Yeah.
yourself that.
It's not a trend yet. It's only 2.
Doing a good
Okay,
job.
keep telling yourself that.
Yeah, I was looking at the list of members and it's like Mike's term is up next year. Like, oh, he better run again. So I think he does a great job anyway.
I think he does too.
So if we're resolved on this, Mr. Chairman, do you want a motion to continue this public hearing until next month? Is that how we do this?
Yeah, I just wanted, if one more call, if anybody from the public has any further input, any questions, anything you need clarified, Any points that haven't been previously made? Okay, I'm not seeing any, and I would entertain a motion.
So moved, continue this, public hearing until the meeting of July 17th.
At 7:15.
Yes, sir.
Second,
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion? Mr. Boissy,
aye.
Mr. English,
Aye.
Mr. Lawrence,
Aye.
Mr. Maloney,
Aye.
Mr. Orban,
Aye.
Charles Woodham's aye, 6 in favor, none opposed, 1 absent, motion carries.